Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dangerously Divine podcast. In today's very special episode, we are diving deep into the art of balancing your masculine and feminine energies, specifically in business, with none other than spiritual business coach Beck Cazillo. Beck has transformed her own personal journey from candle maker to business mindset coach, and she is here helping spiritual women create heart-led, abundant businesses. Today, we are sharing how you can overcome money blocks, elevate your mindset, and really find that sweet spot, that harmony between hustle and flow. Whether you are a corporate business woman or a business owner, get ready to align your career strategies with your soul's purpose. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
Welcome to the Dangerously Divine podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Loren, entrepreneur, life coach, and your new spiritual bestie. We dive deep into all things feminine magnetism, mindset, and empowerment. Prepare to unlock your full potential and activate your feminine gifts. If you're an ambitious woman who's ready to stop playing small, step into your feminine power, and claim a life beyond your wildest dreams, then you're in the right place. So go ahead and turn up the volume. You're about to hear juicy stories, inspirational advice, and transformational tips that'll help you up-level your life and align with the divine goddess within you. More self-confidence, freedom, and abundance are all just a play away. Thank you for listening and enjoy this episode.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, Beck.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
Yes. So for those of the listeners who maybe haven't even heard about what a mindset coach does, would you mind giving a little bit of background?
As a business and mindset coach, I support spiritual women who are in business, ready to scale, ready to grow, ready to build. And I support them with both the strategy, the mindset, and also the energetics of building a business. As you, I am sure, are very aware, when you have a business, it's obviously there's all the learning you do around what it looks like to build and, all the strategy things that go into it, all of the actions and bits and pieces that you have to learn and things you have to put into place. But then mindset is also a really big part of that. And I have found personally and with my clients that building a business is one of the biggest personal development journeys you'll ever go on. And having that mindset support to really help you back all of it up is so key. I think it's almost 90% of the game, really. When you've got that solid mindset, then you can show up and actually take the action you need to take. So that's what I support my clients with. I got here in a very roundabout way, which I feel like is so common in business. I actually started my business making candles way back when, over 8 years ago now. I was already trained as a Reiki healer. I have been in the spiritual space for a really long time. My mum's a professional psychic medium, so I've been around spirituality and spiritual businesses for a really long time. And I decided to build a business as a creative outlet. It was not really something that I was like, okay, this is going to be the thing that's going to be my full-time gig. It was just, let's do something for fun. Let's do something that's creative. And so I created candles, launched my first range. I then created some really beautiful goddess candles. So behind me here, if you're watching on video, you'll get to see, I've got my artworks behind me. These were actually created for my goddess candle range. And so I created these beautiful candles. Goddess spirituality has always been a big part of my life and my spirituality, what I kind of really connect with, that feminine energy, which is obviously what we're going to be talking a little bit more about today. So I infused these beautiful candles with that, released these candles, and to celebrate, I ran a workshop, a change and transformation workshop, and I ran that alongside my mum. It was a really beautiful experience. And I had this moment after that where I was like, wow, this work is powerful. Getting to sit in circle with women, getting to talk about this really, like deep stuff you don't normally talk about. And then, of course, getting to support them with doing that deep inner healing work in that way. I had this moment of like, yes, this is it. And so I trained as a life coach. I started working as a life coach. And then, to cut a very long story short, what happened was I found myself more and more with people in my community who were starting their own spiritual business, and my clients who were like, hey, Beck, you've helped me get to this point and I've now trained as whatever it is that I've trained as, and I want to start my own business. Can you help me? You've built a successful spiritual business. What does that look like? And so I very naturally kind of fell into business coaching and supporting business owners specifically. And then when COVID hit, I went all in on that and supported a lot of my clients who had physical in-person businesses to move their businesses online. And then that was really the point where I niched down into business coaching only. And I absolutely love this work. I love supporting women to build businesses that are an embodiment of their purpose and what they're here to do, and support them with whatever it is that looks like.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think the artwork behind you is beautiful. It's fantastic that you started with candles. I've not heard a story like that. So kudos to you for moving from like a physical product to then a service, because a lot of the time I hear my own clients say that like building a service-based business is sometimes harder than a product business, because there's no like guarantee really that people will have results or that people will even do the work, or it's just harder to back it up and to make that justification in your mind. So it's awesome that you have experience in both. Is there any sort of roadblock that you see in a lot of your spiritual businesses that you work with, as opposed to businesses that are not spiritual, like these larger companies? Is there any specific roadblock that you feel like this is different because I'm in a spiritual space?
There's a few things that come up for me there, and it's such a good question. The biggest one, I think, has to do with money and money mindset and how we relate to money as spiritual humans, because there is this very ingrained belief that money isn't spiritual. And I'm saying that in air quotes, because money is just neutral, in my opinion. That's how I see money. It's this neutral thing. It's an exchange of energy. But we put so much meaning behind what that looks like. And there's a lot of unpacking to do, I think, around what it means to be spiritual and wealthy, and that these two things can go hand in hand. One of the blocks I see is like, oh, I can't charge for my soul's work. If this was really my purpose here on earth, if this was really my soul's work, how can I put a monetary value on that? How can I charge for that? I should be doing it for free. And we don't live in a society that supports that. And it is not, we think of these things as like, people be like, oh, money is evil, or like these are all the blocks that come up, all the thoughts that come up. We've got these messages that are continually reinforced around what money means, or what it means to have money, or what it means to be wealthy, or what it means to be rich. And we need to kind of unpack that, I think, as spiritual business owners. That's probably the biggest one I see around what it means to charge for your soul's work.
That's such a good example, and one that I think will resonate with a lot of people. I know for me personally, money blocks has been a big thing that I've been working on. And for a while, I had to tell my mom, hey, can you please stop talking to me about money? And it was a really hard boundary to draw, but I know that because she was the one that raised me and she kind of instilled these ideas in my head, I had to draw that boundary, because it was like, this is just going to perpetuate and continue. And these blocks are going to keep showing up in my life if I don't stop them in their tracks. And she very much respected that, which I'm grateful for. And it's so funny because now she's come around to my way of thinking. She called me up the other day and was like, Rachel, I just have to tell you, you're so right. The universe always provides. And even when I'm stressed or anxious about money, it always comes in unpredicted ways. And I was like, oh my God, like it's not only working for me, but also I am, helping the generation of women before me also, by establishing that boundary and by addressing my own money blocks, also helping others. So I think that is such a valid example.
Yeah, it's a really big one. It's one that everyone has, right? We all have this, but I think it's then adding in that layer of spirituality, and particularly when, if you're so connected to the work you do, it's like, this holds so much meaning for me. This is my purpose. This is what I'm here to do. This is my mission. There's this added layer of putting your heart and soul into this. And so it's really helpful if you can take the personal out of it in business, but also that can be really challenging as a spiritual business owner when it's like, but this is personal for me because this is my work. This is what I'm here to do. This is my mission. And so really finding that balance between what that looks like, that push-pull between how you can kind of create some separation from you and your business as well is really, really helpful.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway there, to separate the two. You and I are unique in the sense that we primarily work with women. Is there anything that you've found maybe in your female clients that is the largest block that they have to overcome besides money? And I'll give you an example. I found that a lot of my Reiki clients had this like blocked throat chakra and also their sacral chakra. And that kind of led me into feminine energy work because I was like, a Reiki session is not enough. Like, you need to go deeper into, every single aspect of your being. So is there anything that you found throughout your practices or throughout your work that maybe is more of an issue for women to just look out for?
It's a really good question. The biggest thing that I've found that everything in my experience comes back to with women is self-worth. And underneath it all, it's sometimes this feeling of being too much or not being enough. Every time you kind of unpack it, it comes back to this feeling of like, am I worthy of this? And that worthiness piece is so powerful to work on, because I find anyway that that's the thing that everything then stems from. When you feel worthy, then you're more likely to trust in yourself. You're more likely to act from a place of that empowerment of, I believe in myself. I have that confidence. I have that trust, and I can then move forward from here because I trust that everything is working out for me, or that I am worthy of everything that I am creating. If we can kind of dig deep into that worthiness piece, I think that is the most powerful work we can do as women. In my experience, so many of us have those stories of when we were growing up and we were told you're too much, or the not enough side of that. They both go hand in hand. You're not doing enough. You're not being enough. You're not smart enough. You're not thin enough. You're not happy enough. You're not nice enough. All of those things that I know so many women listening will be like, yeah, I've been told that. I've been told that. I've been told that. If we can unpack that and start to work on that and start to build our own sense of self-worth and know that only we are the only people who can validate ourselves, and that is so powerful, then everything else becomes so much easier.
Oh yeah, 100%. I met with my ancestral alignment woman who does that kind of healing for me. And when we had first started our sessions, she's like, Rachel, you're showing up as really small. And like, your energy is giving small and meek. But she's like, I know you. You're not this way. And you're tall and you're loud. And it was so funny because I was like, oh, you're right. I am showing up small. And it did stem from that worthiness. And I think that how I got through it was just kind of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Is there any tips that you have for women who might be resonating with what you're saying and they want to feel more worthy?
Yes. I love this. So I think there's definitely that side of it where, feeling the fear, doing it anyway, it's like the action pulls the mindset forward. It's creating that evidence for yourself. So you've got this opportunity to demonstrate to yourself, like, actually, no, I can do this. I've got this. And you can start to build that muscle in that way where you're pulling that mindset forward by doing. And actually, this is probably very relevant for the topic we're talking about today. But then there's also this side of it where it can be really helpful to actually shine a light on those thoughts and those things and do that deep inner healing work at the same time. So we don't want to stop you from moving forward. We want you to keep moving forward. And then at the same time, we want to go, okay, what is it here that's coming up? Is it, I've been told that I was too loud as a kid. And so I've learnt to not be loud, to fit in and to be safe and to not push anyone else's buttons. And what would it look like to reclaim that? what would it look like to just get a little bit louder or to reclaim your voice in some way? That throat chakra that you were talking about, what would it look like to open that up a little bit and speak your truth and share that? And so when you can shine a light on those things that are coming up for you, and so it might be that you do some journaling around that. If you think about what were you told as a kid, or, what are those things that you feel are blocks for you right now? And sometimes it'll be like, we'll hit one layer, we'll do some work, and then we'll hit another layer and we'll do some more work. But it'll help you identify what those actions are that are actually going to help you shift those things and to go, okay, this is the action I need to take in order to push that edge a little bit and to grow in this particular space and in this particular way.
Yeah, that's so true. I think doing the work is definitely important. And also knowing when to take that inspired and aligned action. Like, yes, you said you can't have one without the other. So important. Let's now kind of get into the main meaty part of this topic, which is finding that balance and that harmony between your masculine and feminine energies. There are a lot of business owners who listen to this podcast, and I myself have fallen victim to, if I am operating a business on feminine energy, then I should always be in my feminine energy. And it took me about a year of running my business where I was like, oh, no. And I had to take a step back and be like, I've gone too far into that realm. And so balancing that has been really top priority for me. But I think I had to go through that phase because initially I graduated with a master's degree. I graduated with all 3 degrees in less than 3 years. Business degree, master's degree, all of it. I had been working since I was 16, at least 2 jobs at a time. Even when I started working full-time, I was working 2 full-time jobs, and it felt like I could never rest because nothing I ever did was good enough. So then when I started this business and I started to heal myself, I think I went too far in the feminine side. And so for me, it has been a very conscious practice of balancing the two, because I know personally I can fall victim to my masculine energy very easily and give in to the hustle culture and always be grinding. But also, you can't have just a business that's focused around feminine energy because nothing will get done. So how do you think that business owners specifically can help, or how can we help them find that balance?
This is such a good question. And I think of so many of my clients who've been in a similar place to you. It's like you rebel against the masculine way that our whole society is run. We are all in this place, whether you're in business or, outside of that, working for someone else. It's such a huge culture of work, do. You have to be productive and you have to be doing in order to have that worth, right? You even talked about not being good enough. We tie our worth to our productivity. And that's obviously so far in the masculine. And so we rebel against that because we're like, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to get this opportunity to be in my feminine energy. What does that look like? And I think sometimes it's really, really fun to have that opportunity to really lean into that and play with that. But you're right. If you spend all your time there, you're not going to get anything done. And so I think what can be really helpful is firstly to work out where you kind of naturally sit. So if you're somebody who does sit more naturally in that place of doing and getting things done and being productive and all of that, then what you'll need to do is look at how you can consciously start to lean more into the feminine and how you can consciously start to probably unpack some mindset stuff around allowing yourself to rest and giving yourself that time and allowing yourself to be and trust and all of the beautiful things that the feminine teaches us. We have to consciously spend time in that. I know personally, I'm somebody who loves the practical strategy doing side of business. And I know for me, I have to consciously go, okay, how am I leaning into trust here? How am I leaning into rest? What am I doing to prioritize the feminine side of things? Whereas a lot of my clients are actually the opposite to me, and they are creative intuitives. They love being in the flow. They don't like structure. They don't like planning, or that doesn't come naturally to them. And so for them, for people who sit on that side, it's like, okay, what can we do? What can we put in place to create some structure and even start thinking about structure in a different way? The way that I like to think of the masculine and the feminine energy working together is the masculine provides the container and the feminine flows within it. And so if you think of a river, there is no river if there's no riverbank. And you need that riverbank, which is the masculine, to hold the river. And then when you've got a really solid riverbank, the river can flow. And so we want both, because without any water and without any flow, there's no river either. And so thinking about where you sit more naturally is going to really help you go, okay, what do I need to do consciously here? When we're more self-aware, we can then create practices and a plan and take actions that are going to be really supportive for us because we know who we are and we know what we need.
Right. I love that example of the riverbank. I feel like a lot of my listeners are naturally gravitating towards their masculine energy. And so that's why they love the show and that's why they come to me. So do you have any tips for women in their masculine energy to consciously do to flow more in their feminine?
So this can be really hard, speaking from experience, but the feminine requires us to slow down essentially and stop and be. And so if you're somebody who is always doing, and then if you do have a moment, instead of just allowing yourself to be with your thoughts, you're like, I'm going to scroll my phone or I'm going to go and find something else to do. You really need to take the time to stop and allow yourself to be with just your thoughts. And the way that I have done this for myself is created really beautiful rituals that work for me. I'm a mum of two. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I don't have a lot of time. But creating some rituals, building that in, being really conscious of like, okay, I'm not going to look at my phone while I have my cup of tea right now. I'm not going to work while I eat my lunch, like actually build in time where you are not doing and you are actually just being, and that's not being distracted by TV or your phone or all of those other things. So it's like, what does it look like to actually slow down and build that in? It's one of the reasons why I think, if people go on holidays, they suddenly have all of this creative ideas, all of this energy that comes in because they're, actually for once pausing and they're allowing themselves to do that. And so if you can create that in your everyday, that is going to be really helpful. And so I would start small, doesn't have to be huge, but just build in some things to your day where you're taking a moment to just be and be grateful, sit with your cup of tea or your coffee in the morning and just really slow down. It's really, really hard. I say that and I'm like, it sounds so simple, but it's actually quite challenging because being with ourselves when you're used to not doing that is really, really hard.
Oh no, 100%. When I was first going through my spiritual awakening, I did like one night by myself with like no TV, no music, no books, nothing, just like me and my thoughts. And it was the most uncomfortable thing. And after I was done with this night, I just started jotting down all of the thoughts that came to me and circling them like a crazy person, just writing all of the downloads down. And the biggest one that I got was no distractions. Let yourself have a conscious thought. It sounds so simple, but we're constantly stimulated, interrupting our own brain from having a thought. How can we be creative when we're constantly stimulated by outside forces? And I've actually just told a client to do that, go through my method of it with like no music, no books, nothing. And she freaked out. She's like, I can maybe do 1 hour with that, but like that is going to be hard. And I'm like, yeah, you got to do it though. Like if it feels scary, it feels hard. That's the freaking thing you got to do.
Yeah.
Hello.
For sure. I so agree with that. That's, getting out of that comfort zone and into that place of discomfort is where all the growth happens. I think it's so great
100%.
that you shared that. The other thing that comes up for me when it comes to feminine energy is getting, and this is kind of counter to what we've been talking about, but also getting out of your head. So moving your body. We spend so much time up here in the thinking brain, and that's where the masculine is. If you think about the masculine, it's like that rational thought, where the feminine is that other side, that's the creative side of the brain. And so it's connected to our body, it's connected to movement. So any of those like somatic practices where you're moving your body and you're actually in your body and not ignoring. So many of us spend so much time kind of disconnected from the neck down, we don't connect in with our body
Mm.
enough. And so anything that allows you to do that is going to support you to be more in that feminine energy. And I'm a big fan of, not making it more complicated than it has to be. You know, people think, oh, spiritual business coach, it means that I've got a 2-hour morning routine that I do where I meditate and I journal and I do all of these beautiful practices. And while that is a beautiful, delicious thing to do, I don't have the time for that. And it's also not necessary. You can actually access these energies quite quickly and you can kind of shift things in your body quite quickly. And it doesn't need to be this long, convoluted thing. You can do this in a really simple, easy way that also works for you. So it doesn't have to look like anything. The more you can kind of let go of any perfectionism you have around what that looks like, the easier it's going to be.
100%. I love that. One of my favorite ways to like get into my body is to just get in the shower. Like feel the water down your back, on your arms, like, you know, smell the shampoo, like just spend 20, 30 minutes alone in the shower. Just you're noticing your senses. And that's a really good way if you don't like to like go to the gym or you think, oh, I don't have time for this class or I don't have time to go for a walk. You have time for a shower, I hope. So that's one of my things that I can build off of what you said.
I love a good shower.
There's a little bit of controversy, I feel like, nowadays around masculine and feminine energy. You and I understand that when we talk about masculine and feminine, we're not talking about gender. We're just solely talking about energy. Do you feel like society is going away from masculine and feminine energy practices because of, you know, their own beliefs about gender? Or do you think now more than ever, it's something that's important?
Yeah, I think it will always be important to find the balance between these two energies. And I think language is really important. And I understand that masculine and feminine, the words are divisive and not inclusive necessarily. At the same time, you're right. It's not about gender. And everybody, regardless of gender, embodies these energies in some way. We all have this. It's the yin and yang. It's the dark and the light. It's the night and day. There's so much duality that we have in the world in terms of these energies. There's always these opposing things. That's the experience we're having as humans on this 3D earth. We have these energies within us. And whatever language you're using, it doesn't really matter. I like to think of it, you know, if we think about masculine and feminine energies, masculine is the right side of the body, feminine is the left side of the body. Feminine is the right side of the brain, which is the creative side, and masculine is the left side of the brain, which is that rational side. So you can even think of it like that, like right brain, left brain thinking. There are so many ways we can talk about this, and it doesn't have to be masculine and feminine. That's the language we use in the spiritual community at the moment. I don't know whether that's going to change. Perhaps it needs to. It's a really big kind of question. And I do think that language is important, but I also equally think that understanding these different sides of ourselves are important because it helps us to learn about ourselves. It helps us to become more whole when we start to shine a light on these different areas. So it's a really good question and one that I don't necessarily am ever going to have like the full answer to, but I do think that this duality is not going anywhere.
Right. No, I think that was a beautifully executed answer. I just wanted to clear the air for anyone listening that even if you don't identify as male or female, this is still relevant to you because we all have that duality, no matter what you call it, right? You would agree?
I think that duality exists.
So we talked a little bit about finding that balance between your masculine and feminine energies, specifically in business. Do you feel like if someone is leaning too far in one direction, that they'll ever be able to kind of get out of that? Or do you think that it naturally kind of leans one way or the other?
I think people generally have a place they sit more naturally, but I do think that with intention, you can always... Balance is such an interesting word because I don't know if we ever quite get to a place of being balanced, but you can put practices into place where it's like, okay, now I'm going to be more intentional about this. And I think working with both is really powerful. So if we look at the way that I think about this in business or in strategy or in planning, it's like, okay, let's come back to our feminine and actually look at how do we want to feel? We want to stay in that feminine space where we're really connected to our intuition and our feelings and our emotions, and really setting goals from that place that feel really aligned. So it's not about all of this external stuff. The masculine has a tendency to look outside of itself and go, okay, I'm going to set my goals based on what everyone else is doing. It's like, no, let's come back and see what's important to you in here first. Set goals from that place. And then the masculine is going to help us get there. So the masculine is going to help us create the plan, create the strategy, create the action. And that's what aligned action is. That's what I believe aligned action is. It's like knowing yourself, coming back to that feminine place to really decide on what that looks like, and then acting from that place, which is the masculine supporting that feminine intention. So that's how I like to look at it and kind of see it. And so if you're more sitting in that feminine place more naturally, you're more likely to be in that flowy, connected to your intuition, thinking about all of the things that you would like to do, but you're not necessarily taking action on any of them. And so we want to go, okay, if that's you, how can we bring more intention to this place and actually start to create a plan? But if you're sitting in the other side where it's like, do, your goals on things that are external to you, you're going to quickly realize it because you'll probably reach your goals and they won't feel very good. So what we want to do is go, okay, let's unpack this and come back to what is going to feel good, what is in alignment, and setting goals and the vision from that place first before we move into action.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I guess the better word would be harmony as opposed to balance.
Love that.
Because, I feel like I totally agree that there's never going to be like a 50-50 balance. And so I think also it's important to look at this harmony and say two things can happen simultaneously. And it's not, I'm in my masculine energy this day and my feminine energy this day, or, this minute I'm in my masculine and this minute I'm in my feminine. Both can exist within you at the same time, right?
Yeah, two things can be true at once. I think something I talk to my clients about is, you can be having a bad day for whatever reason, or you've just woken up and you're not feeling it today, but that doesn't have to mean that your business is impacted by that. Like you can hold two things at once. You can support yourself through a bad day in whatever way you need to, and you can also show up for your business, or that your business is not going to be impacted by that because you've set things up in a way that allows that to happen. And so those two things can be true at once. If you think about manifestation and the spiritual space around, your energy and your vibe, it can very easily be reduced to this, like, if you're not feeling it, then you're not going to attract it. But actually, I think it's more nuanced than that. And we've got the ability to be over here not feeling great for whatever reason for a period of time, while also knowing that generally you are a high vibe person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I would totally agree with you. I think it's so much more nuanced. Thank you for bringing that up.
So good.
Okay, Beck, we're about to close this episode, but I know you have a quote that you want to share with the listeners. And if you could just give a little context to what it means to you and how it applies to your life or this conversation we've been having.
So my favorite quote ever is, "Dream as if you'll live forever, live as if you'll die today." And it's a James Dean quote, which I always find kind of amusing because obviously he was a movie star in the 50s. For me, I've loved this ever since I was a teenager. I remember I had it on a poster in my bedroom. And the reason I love it is because it really speaks to this idea of living in the present moment. Living as if you'll die today is all about being present with that. But also dreaming as you'll live forever is having those big dreams, having those big visions and moving towards those. And really what we were just talking about in terms of holding those two things at the same time, it's like, I can dream big. I can have that vision for what I want my life and my business to look like into the future forever. Like if we look at however long that will be and what that big picture vision is. And I can also go, today I'm going to live my life and I'm going to enjoy this moment and I'm going to bring that presence and that intention to everything that I'm doing today and really get the most joy and magic I can out of every day, because we know that it really is about the journey and not the destination.
Second quote.
But that's what this quote is all about, really. It's about both of those things, having that really big, beautiful dream and then also getting to enjoy the day to day.
I love that. That's so important. James Dean quote.
I know.
Old fashioned. Love it. Beck, I'll give you the next couple minutes to plug your business if my listeners are interested in how they can work with you where can they find you at?
Yeah, so you can come and find me over on Instagram is where I hang out most. My Instagram handle is Beck_Cazillo. I would love to chat with you. I would love to hear from you. If you've been listening into this today, let me know that that's where you found me. I would really love to connect with you about that. If you've got any questions or if you want to share any insights, I would really love to hear. And I also have a podcast. My podcast is Feminine Fire with Beck Cazillo. So if you're a podcast listener, come on over. There's over 170 episodes, I think, now. And if you're a business owner, that's going to be really supportive for you. It's all about business strategy, energy, mindset, everything to support you as you build, grow your business. And I would love to hear from you if you do come and listen, because it's just my absolute favorite thing ever is to record podcast episodes. I love this medium. So thank you for having me on today.
Yes, beautiful. I'm going to go give it a listen when we are done recording. Thank you for plugging that. So yes, I will also put Beck's links in the description if you're interested in working with her or connecting with her. I'll make it easy for you. But thank you so much, Beck, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you and speaking about balancing the masculine and feminine.
Thank you so much for having me.